New York City, April 30th, 1990. In a downtown loft, a crime has just been committed. Joseph Harris, art director for a prestigious magazine, lay bleeding on his living room floor. 14 stab wounds to his chest and neck, all of which are fatal.
Let me just say that in all my years of homicide, both before and after this case, I've never seen anything so severe.
Joseph Harris shared the loft with his 15-year-old daughter, Nicole Bradford, as well as with her other father, Michael Taylor.
It was a bizarre situation. Both men had been intimate with Nicole's mother, Marcy Bradford, around the same time in the late 70s. In 1987, when Marcy Bradford died, it was revealed that one of them was Nicole's father. Without knowing which one it was, her will named both men as the girl's custodian.
New York Child Services ran tests to determine paternity, but the results came back as indeterminate. In what was an extremely controversial ruling, the judge assigned to the case, Margaret Wilbur, ruled that both men had equal custody rights of Nicole, decreeing that they live with one another as a family.
That ruling was just mind-blowing, and many newspapers criticized the judge's decision.
A lot of people were up in arms over the decision, but to me at least, it seemed like it was going to work. It really felt like we were becoming a family.
Judge Wilbur's ruling, criticism of it notwithstanding, actually did seem to be working. The three lived with one another for nearly 3 years, functioning as normally as one could expect. And it was during this time that both fathers were hired by a new magazine upstart called Financial Update. It was during this period that tough times hit Taylor. Once a promising financial advisor, a series of bad investments had put him deep in debt. Hoping to cover his losses, Taylor began embezzling from Financial Update. Being a financial expert, Taylor was able to cover up the withdrawals quite easily. Instead, his scam was brought down by a momentary lapse in judgment.
I had just come down for breakfast when I saw Dad, Joe, reading a bunch of documents. He was getting more and more agitated as he went through them, and I asked what was wrong. He just told me it was between fathers.
What Joseph had discovered were numerous loan agreements that Taylor had accidentally left on their dining room table. Most listed Financial Update as the guarantor, but others listed Joseph Harris and even their daughter, Nicole Bradford. Joseph confronted Taylor over the documents, asking him for an explanation. When his co-father couldn't give one, Joseph gave an ultimatum: either come clean yourself and face the consequences, or he'd go straight to Judge Wilbur and fight for full custody of Nicole. Seemingly resigned to his fate, Michael requested a day to put his affairs in order, promising that the next day he'd resign at Financial Update and face up to his actions. Joseph agreed to the request. His trust in his co-father would ultimately be his undoing. Later that night, Michael broke back into the loft he shared with Harris, and while staging a break-in, would stab Joseph Harris to death.
Despite how good Taylor was at covering up the embezzlement, he didn't have a clue on how to cover up a murder scene. Within a couple hours of having him in our custody, we knew Taylor was our guy.
When confronted with the evidence, Michael Taylor folded. Agreeing to a plea agreement in which he'd be spared the death penalty, he directed police to Pleasant Lake, a private community just outside Stratford, New York, where he had disposed of the murder weapon, a large tomato knife. Michael Taylor was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole and is currently serving his sentence at Edgecombe Correction Facility, where he has proved to be a model prisoner. He declined Crackle News' request for an interview. These days, Nicole Bradford lives alone, having changed her name and appearance due to unwanted attention from her prisoner father. In a twist usually only seen on a TV sitcom, an orphan was given the chance to have a family, but greed tore the parents apart, leaving the young girl to grow up in a world without two dads.
The moment he killed Dad, he was no longer my father. Most children only have to lose 2 parents. I lost 3.